It looks like we're, all right. I call to order the meeting of the Verona Common Council for Monday, January 27th, 2025 at 7:02 p.m. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we'll have the roll.
Braithwaite.
Here.
Harrison.
Here.
Helmke.
Here.
Hoax.
Present.
Kaiser McHenry.
Here.
Lytle.
Here.
Posey.
Here.
Tucker Long.
Here.
All present, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent. We can proceed. We will move on to item 4, which is public comment. If any members of the public wish to speak, now would be the time to do so.
I wasn't expecting to make a comment tonight, but I see the old library is on the agenda. I also know that we have city staff here willing or ready to make their presentation on the use of that building. I'd be remiss if I didn't at least say a positive comment about the church that's currently there and Pastor Dwight Wise, who has been our chaplain for about 25 years. He's been a great partner to the police department and to the community. And I just wanted to give him that compliment. I don't know what situation this puts him in and what puts his church in, but I just wanted to reinforce that he has been a great partner for us. So, thank you.
Thank you. We're still in public comment, so if anyone else wishes to comment, now would be the time to do so. Seeing no one else approaching the microphone, we'll move on to item 5, which is approve the minutes from the January 13th, 2025 Common Council meeting. Questions, comments, corrections, or motions to approve? Alder Tucker Long.
I move to approve the minutes.
Motion by Alder Tucker Long. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alder Humke. Last chance for corrections. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the minutes from the January 13th, 2025 Common Council meeting, say aye.
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 Opposed, no? And that motion passes. We'll move on to item 6, which is mayor's business. First up, we have the appointment of Skylar Frank, or Frankie, I'm not actually sure how to pronounce Frankie, okay, to the library board. Current library board member Regina Fuller resigned to take a job, or she was moving to take a job in another community, so she doesn't live in Verona anymore, so she can't be on the library board. So this is to fill the remainder of the term. Motion to confirm the appointment would be in order, unless anyone has any discussion. Alder Humke.
I'll make a motion to approve the appointment of Skylar Frankie to the library board.
Motion by Alder Humke. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Braithwaite. Motion before the body. All those in favor of approving the appointment of Skylar Frankie to the library board, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no?
Aye.
Opposed, no? And that motion passes. With that, we'll move on to item 7, which is announcements. Any announcements from the council? Alder Tucker Long.
I have staff anniversary cards, so stop by after the meeting to sign them.
Cool. Any other announcements from the council? Seeing no other announcements, we'll move on to item 8, which is the administrative report. Mr. Olick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if I ever mentioned I'm a former county clerk, so old habits die hard with taking attendance and other things, so sorry about that. Scared you. With that, I am the acting city clerk tonight. Holly is out with a sick child, so hopefully that resolves itself quickly. In other news, Ann Frywald has been hired as the assistant city administrator, and so she starts February 10th. She comes to us from the City of Madison Parks Department, where she was a supervisor of parks development. So one of the things that really stuck out in her interview, especially as we continue to be a fast-growing city, is that she prides herself on being a blocking and tackling, which basically means trying to remove roadblocks to getting things done, which I thought was really a good point and something that we absolutely can use here at the City of Verona. So her Outlook account is live. Feel free to reach out to her or schedule meetings, which is what I've been doing all day for her. But otherwise, she'll be here to introduce herself as soon as she can. W-2s, Alders, are in your box if you haven't gotten them, so please do check that, check your boxes. And lastly, just a shout out to our administration staff, or finance people in particular. To date, out of the 5,200 tax bills that Verona sends out, 4,300 have been processed, and there's probably going to be kind of a large batch here at the end, which is typical. But overall, I mean, they have what they do down to a science. This morning, even absentee ballots, they were getting all of that prepped. And I mean, it's just 5 people all in a circle getting everything ready. It's impressive to watch them do what they do. So anyway, that's gone really well, and onward, upward. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Aulick? Seeing no hands, we'll move on to item 9, which is the engineer's report. Ms. Fisher.
Thank you. The Country View Road relocation project, so that includes relocating existing Country View Road to the west of the existing houses on Country View Road on the west side of the city. For that project, there are 2 remaining phases of the project left, with Phase 2 under construction and Phase 3 anticipated to be under construction later this year. Construction of both phases is anticipated to be completed by the end of this year. For Phase 2, the contractor started preliminary earthwork operations on the stormwater pond the first week of January, and utility relocation is anticipated to start in early February. For the US 18151 project from County Highway G to Wisconsin 69, also kind of on the west side of the city, clearing and grubbing contractor is scheduled to be on site right around this time, and other construction is anticipated to start in March and April 2025. For Ardent Glen, we are anticipating 3 phases to be constructed in 2025. So Phase 3B, so it's the second half of Phase 3 that was started last year, Phase 4, and then Phase 5 later this year. And surface paving is anticipated to be completed for Phases 1 and 2 this year. So with that, I can take any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Fisher? All right, seeing no further questions, we'll move on to item 10, which is committee reports. First up, we have 10A, Finance Committee. Alder Helmke.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion for payment of the bills in the amount of $2,422,207.71.
Motion by Alder Helmke. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Posey. Alder Helmke.
Yeah, these bills are comprised of 3 main pieces. The first is to the City of Madison for the transit payment for 3rd and 4th quarters for $618,952. To Fitch Verona EMS for the first half operating payment for $421,169. And to Madison Metro Sewage District for the 4th quarter payment for $421,220.
Thank you for the explanation. Questions or comments on the motion to pay the bills? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of passing the motion to pay the bills signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. And that motion passes. Anything further from Finance?
Nothing further, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent. With that, we'll move on to 10B, Public Safety and Welfare Committee. Alder Host.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve an application for a fixed full-service retail outlet license for Cider Farm Brands, LLC, doing business as Orchard, located at 881 West Verona Avenue.
Motion by Alder Host. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alder Posey. Alder Host.
Thank you. The applicant is applying for a fixed full-service retail outlet for their proposed restaurant and bar located at 881 West Verona Avenue. The Wisconsin Department of Alcohol Beverages is the licensing entity for this type of alcohol license, but they require the governing body to sign off on the application before the license can be issued. A background check has been conducted on the applicant, and staff recommend approval of the application.
Thank you for that explanation. Questions or comments on this motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the application for a fixed full-service retail outlet for Cider Farms Brands, LLC, doing business as Orchard, located at 881 West Verona Avenue, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. And that motion passes. Alder Host.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to make a motion to approve the application for a temporary Class B fermented malt beverage license and temporary Class B wine license from D. Baldock, Verona Area Community Theater for the performance of Sweet Surrender on February 13th through 15th and February 20th to 22nd, 2025, contingent upon final background checks.
Motion by Alder Host. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alder Posey. Alder Host.
Thank you. The Verona Area Community Theater is requesting a temporary Class B fermented malt beverage license and temporary Class B wine license for the performance of the Sweet Life for the dates mentioned above. Staff recommends approval of the license contingent upon final background check.
So just to clarify, that was for Sweet Surrender or Sweet Life?
Well, it's a good question.
I suppose it doesn't really matter what.
It says Sweet Surrender.
Okay.
I'm not sure of the name of the show.
Does it matter?
Look it up quick.
I mean, the application does say Sweet Surrender,
Okay.
S-U-I-T-E.
That's what we will go with then. Thank you. Motion before the body. Questions or comments on this motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the application for a temporary Class B fermented malt beverage license and temporary Class B wine license from D. Baldock, Verona Area Community Theater for the performance of Sweet Surrender on February 13th to the 15th, 2025, and February 20th through the 22nd, 2025, with the contingency specified, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no? And that motion passes. Alder Host.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to make a motion to approve a temporary Class B fermented malt beverage license and temporary Class B wine license from D. Baldock, Verona Area Community Theater for the performance of Grease Senior Musical on May 8th through 10 and May 16th through 18th, 2025, contingent upon final background check.
Motion by Alder Host. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Humke. Alder Host.
Thank you. The Verona Area Community Theater is requesting a temporary Class B fermented malt beverage license and temporary Class B wine license for the performance of Grease Senior Musical for the dates listed. Staff recommends approval of the license contingent upon final background check.
Thank you for that explanation. Questions or comments on this motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the application for a temporary Class B fermented malt beverage license and temporary Class B wine license from D. Baldock, Verona Area Community Theater for their performance of Grease Senior Musical on May 8th through the 10th, 2025, and May 16th through the 18th, 2025, with the contingency specified, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no? And that motion passes. Alder Host.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance number 25-1057, amending section 10-1-26 relating to 15-minute parking on West Verona Avenue.
Motion by Alder Host. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Humke. Alder Host.
Thank you. The Department of Public Works asked for this ordinance to be modified in response to a crosswalk modification scheduled to occur on West Verona Avenue at West Lawn Avenue when rapid flashing beacons are installed. The crosswalk will be relocated from the east side of the intersection to the west side of the intersection to align with the existing sidewalk. As a result, one parking stall will be eliminated on the west side of the intersection and relocated to the east side of the intersection. So there's going to be no net loss or gain of parking stalls. The parking stalls designated as 15-minute parking only will shift to the west accordingly. This ordinance amendment accounts for the new measurements only.
Thank you for that explanation. Questions or comments on this motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of approving ordinance number 25-1057, amending section 10-1-26 relating to 15-minute parking on West Verona Avenue, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no? And that motion passes. Anything further from Public Safety?
Nothing further. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. With that, we'll move on to 10C, which is Public Works, Sewer, and Water Committee. Alder Tucker Long.
Thank you. I move to approve the Stormwater Services Agreement with AECom at a cost not to exceed $96,050.
Motion by Alder Tucker Long. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Braithwaite. Alder Tucker Long.
Thank you. AECom has been continuously assisting the City of Verona with a variety of stormwater services in conjunction with the city's annual MS4 permit. These services include public education, outreach and involvement, illicit discharge detection and elimination, construction, site pollutant control, stormwater management ordinance compliance, public and private stormwater facility inspections, pollution prevention at public facilities, storm sewer system map updates, MS4 annual report, and Verona Design Manual updates. The included agreement is for the continuation of the services referenced above for 2025 at a cost not to exceed $96,050.
Thank you for that explanation. Questions or comments on this motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the Stormwater Services Agreement with AECom in the amount specified signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. And that motion passes. Anything further from Public Works?
Nothing further.
Excellent. With that, we'll move on to item 11, which is new business. First up, we have 11A, which is a discussion and possible action regarding the Design Engineering Services Agreement with AECom for the Verona 2025 Comprehensive Plan Support. Mr. Olick.
Thank you, Mayor. The Common Council created a comprehensive plan task force to oversee the development of an updated comprehensive plan. The task force issued a request for proposals to select a consultant to prepare a comprehensive plan for the city with assistance provided by the city's engineer, AECom. In October of 2024, the Common Council voted to approve a budget amendment in the amount of $157,430, including a work authorization with MKSK for $119,810, who is acting as the primary consultant on the project. AECom services for their portion of the project are $37,620 and are within the previously amended budget request. The consulting services contract with AECom has been reviewed by staff.
Thank you for that explanation. Questions, comments, or motions on this item? Alder Tucker-Long.
Okay. I move that we approve the Design Engineering Services Agreement for the City of Verona 2025 Comprehensive Plan Support with AECom for a cost not to exceed $37,620, subject to final review and approval by the Director of Planning and Development and the City Attorney.
Motion by Alder Tucker-Long. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Alder Posey. Motion before the body. Any questions or comments on this motion? Alder Lytle.
So I realize this is probably just standard terminology we use, but for the comprehensive plan, I'm assuming they're not, AECom isn't actually providing design engineering, it's more planning and study engineering. And that's fine, I just wanted to clarify.
Ms. Fisher?
That's correct. So it's just a standard agreement. So it includes design. So there's more, it's more concept level type design. So it's taking sort of what has been done, you know, over the since the last plan and compiling that and making sure we get that into some of the overall GIS figures and just working with MKSK. We've already kind of done some of the walkthroughs with them to walk through and say, you know, here's studies that are upcoming or have been done and things like that. So it's not heavy design. There's no plan production. It's more GIS level design.
Any other questions or comments on the motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the Design Engineering Services Agreement with AECom for the Verona 2025 Comprehensive Plan Support with the contingency specified, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. And that motion passes. Next up, we have 11B, which is a discussion on possible action regarding the potential uses of and commercial lease agreement for 130 Franklin Street, Verona, Wisconsin, which is the former library. Mr. Olick.
Thank you, Mayor. The city-owned building at 130 Franklin Street, also known as the former library, is leased to Redeemer Bible Fellowship. The lease was renewed for 12 months commencing on October 1st, 2024, and ending on September 30th, 2025, at a rate of $5,500 per month. To the extent the city wishes to terminate the lease, the city must provide the tenant at least 6 months' written notice of termination. If the city exercised this clause, the termination would become effective September 30th, 2025. To explore options on city-based uses of the building, staff were requested to present ways the space might be used by city departments. 3 departments showed interest in potentially using the building: the Verona Recreation Department, Verona Senior Center, and the Verona Public Library. The directors of each department are in attendance to give a presentation and answer questions.
Thank you. I guess if staff wants to start.
Take one for yourself.
All right, I'm Casey Dudley, the rec director here in Verona, and Jamie tasked us with this presentation to give you guys an idea of what we could possibly do with the old library if we take it back and don't renew the lease. So we put together a little presentation here, myself, Stephanie, and Stacy. So certainly ask any questions as we move through, but I'll kind of lead the presentation and they can interject as needed. All right? So, ideas for the library. Benefits to the city. First of all, the Recreation Department. Myself, I've been the rec director here for 23 years, be 24 in February, and we've never had our own space to offer programming. We've strictly used the schools, the senior center, and the library, the old City Hall building before it was tore down. So we kind of move around to utilize inside space. With that said, a lot of those spaces, especially the schools, we can get bumped on a moment's notice. If there's a snow day, if there's bad weather, if they need to make something up, we're not able to do that. Also, it really makes it difficult to have during the school day, during the school year, programming. So this certainly would be an option to be able to offer some of those programs for the rec department, not only during the school day, but also the evenings, weekends, throughout the year. Next, there, the library. Basically, they're looking for storage for their records from, that is taking up space in their current facility that was not meant for record storage. So they're looking to try to move that out of the current library and in to this space if we have it available to us. And then the senior center is looking to do some more programming crossed with the rec department and for themselves to expand. So I kind of moved ahead on our presentation here. One of the things, like I said, don't have our own space. Secondly, one of the options would be able to move the rec department offices from the current facility that we're in, Parks, Public Works, and Recreation Building, down to Investment Court. Right now, there's crowded offices. This would make sense if we were to move there. We could then run programming there and not have to hire staff during the daytime. So that would alleviate some of that. And then also, like I said, we could significantly expand programming. So next slide here shows, we just put together a list of things that we could, off the top of our heads, that we've been wanting to expand without space. So first of all, preschool age programming, listed a few there. That's certainly something that we could expand upon. And then we have several school age programs as well. Some of these are some that we currently do, but we're limited on because we have to use the school or we have to use the senior center, that kind of thing. So we could expand upon those. One of the big ones there, and I know it's a pretty big need, is after school programming. The YMCA does it in all of our elementary schools, and they are all maxed out with waiting lists. This could certainly fill that need. Another option, probably at a little more of affordable price. Also, other activities we could do there are some adult classes, yoga, exercise classes as well. Like I said, other potential uses, talked about the office space at the current Public Works Park and Rec building. Literally, we have one office with 3 people in it. Another office has 2 people sharing an office. So I would presume that maybe some of those folks might want their own office. This would alleviate that. But if we moved supervision, like I said, at that building would be less of a need during the daytime, as myself and Mari, the rec assistant, would be there. Another big option is, or opportunity here is, for the public, is indoor room rental space. So a lot of communities have a community center. They can have a birthday party, they can have a wedding shower activity, or that kind of thing, little family get-togethers. Basically, we don't have an indoor space for that. I think Stephanie could probably speak to that, but I think they've used the senior center. But this is something that I've had several calls on over the years. Do we have an indoor space that we can rent out? We don't. So this would be another option that we can add to offer to the community. Some other potential uses. We could do some more community-based programs and events. A couple here that I know other communities do, like a bingo night or a puzzle palooza. That's an activity where folks get together and do a large puzzle in a few hours, certain amount of time. That's been a big hit, I know, in other communities. Currently, I do a lot of my coaches' meetings at the senior center or at outdoor park shelters, because we don't have an indoor space large enough to, if I have 30 coaches come into a coaches meeting, I don't have that space. And then storage space. Currently, we use the mezzanines at the Public Works garage. It's dirty. Every time we go to get anything out up there, our hands are covered, because over the time, sitting up there, whether it's vehicle exhaust or just dirt over time, adds to that. So this would give us the ability to move some items there and utilize that. And I guess I'll let Stacy come up and speak to.
Yeah, so our need for the building space is not as much as Casey. However, one of the big problems we have at the library is storage. We only have one storage room, which also doubles as our tornado shelter. And so we have to balance, and it's also where the Verona Area Historical Society documents are stored. So we're kind of tripled up in that space. And anyway, so we would love if there is an opportunity just to move some lesser used or seasonal items over to an off-site facility. So that would be our main request of the space. Along with, we would love to do more programming, with other city departments. So, if there was an event, we have an outreach librarian, could definitely come, make library cards, bring books for checkout. We could definitely be involved in any other programs with other departments. So I think there's a lot of room for collaboration. So any questions about this section?
Any questions, at least regarding Alder Braithwaite?
Yeah, question regarding the the storage needs. So there's the basement in the old library that is served with an elevator. I don't remember the condition necessarily, but are you envisioning storing? Is it what types of storage? Is it like heavy items that could? Because I understand the elevator's not. Maybe not 100% functional, or maybe it is. Maybe I shouldn't say that. Anyway, what are you looking to store?
Yes. So, for example, we do, during the winter months, we do an indoor open play program called The Young and the Restless, and we have just a lot of large motor skill toys that for toddler preschool based, but we only use those from December to March. And so during the rest of those months, it'd be great to get them out of the building, and they're kind of precariously on shelves over the outside book return. And anyway, yes, so it wouldn't necessarily be heavy items. It would be items that we would probably, and not things we would need to move back and forth frequently. Well, and I have not spoken with anyone from the Historical Society, but I know they would need good quality like air conditions and humidity and temperature control, because that is archivable quality storage, so that would be a different concern, I guess.
Any other questions? Alder Humke.
Just out of curiosity, what obligation are we, I'm not opposed to the Historical Society, but like what obligation are we to do that actually, to like have archival levels storage for them?
I mean, I don't think we have any obligation.
Okay, so it's just we're doing it out of, I'm not trying to, like, I'm just trying to understand like what we're obligated to do and not
Can
obligated
you
to do.
just, Stacy, do you know the backstory of how we receive those materials?
I've been with the library for 20 years, and to my understanding, we've always had those items. We moved them from the
not
previous
unusual.
library, so I don't know at what point this originated, but obviously they don't have their own building in town, and so I think we were a logical partner there.
Can I ask a follow-up? Like, so how much, like, size, like, how much is there of what they're, like, looking at, they would need stored? Because I think there's, I've been in the basement, and there's, storage space. I'm just trying to figure out how much of,
I would say we have, I'm bad at estimating, like, maybe like a 4 by 12 foot area of shelving we have, but I know that they also, the members there also have items at their own houses as well, which.
Other questions on the presentation so far? Seeing none?
Thank you.
Okay, so they both already touched on some things that could benefit the senior center, but really, the three of us have been working on interdepartmental programming, so trying to tie the community together. We represent different ages and trying to blend that a little bit more. Not everybody loves children at the senior center, although we try to incorporate that, so this would be a nice space, neutral space for everybody. Seniors could still do their thing, but we would partner with other age groups as well. And then if you follow any of our materials at the senior center, read our newsletter, et cetera, we're growing by leaps and bounds, over 400 members. I mean, it's nonstop. And exercise classes is something that is full with a wait list for all of our classes, and our studio can only house about 12 people safely for an exercise class. So the downstairs of the former library would be a great space to offer bigger classes for our members to keep up with the demand. And then intergenerational programming, Casey and I have been working together in the last year or so, trying to partner and figure out programs, whether that's the TOTS morning class, it's morning with grandma and little kids, or it's a field trip with grandma and kids, et cetera. So just lots of opportunities there for partnership. Okay, and then a couple more things. When I started here, Mitch and I were trying to get employee wellness off of the ground, Mitch from HR, and it hasn't gone anywhere. There just hasn't been time or anything, but this would be a great opportunity to kickstart some classes or programs or offerings for employees, as whether that's recognition or just available, affordable, local opportunities for them to participate in. Example could be first aid, CPR classes, exercise classes. They have a kitchen in the basement of the former library, so it could be opportunities there. If you read at the high school, they're trying to do community wellness programs there, potential partnership or idea sharing to offer that for employees or anybody else locally. Questions for me?
Any questions on the presentation so far? Seeing none?
Okay, lots of things to consider here.
So with that, obviously, there's lots of things to consider, right? In order to make it a great space for us to utilize. I believe the carpet in the facility is original, and it's old. So, and if we're looking to rent out a space to a party, a thing, any kind of those events or children, I believe I'd recommend we change the flooring to more like an LVP, something that can handle a spill, easy cleanup, simple to do, I think, at not a huge cost. Next, there are the ADA upgrades. Brandon mentioned the elevator. I think the elevator, last time I spoke with Simon, is still passed the inspection and everything, but he's not overwhelmingly confident that it has a huge, long life without some upgrades. So if we want to program down there at any time, that would need to be addressed. Simply, you could not have programming there and not have to do anything with the elevator. Obviously, the storage, if we're moving items down there, there's stairs nearby as well. So that's something to consider. Understanding the lighting was recently updated per Simon. Basement was retrofitted with LED lights. Not certain on if there's a dishwasher down there, but there are some kitchen appliances. I know there's a refrigerator. Painting, we'd probably have to paint the facility. And then the dehumidification, like Stacy talked about, if she wanted to have historical records in the basement, right now there's a humidifier down there that has a hose running to a drain, but talking to Simon, he thinks it'd be something that we'd want to put on the furnace rather than have just a dehumidifier, sitting down there plugged in running. So that'd be something maybe to address. Again, there's possibilities for, when Stacy talked about the small historical records room, there are spaces in the upstairs that could potentially satisfy that as well. My understanding is one of the doors is a bit rusty in the frame, needs to be replaced. There are 5 furnaces in the facility. One is brand new, just recently replaced. The others are 1 to 5 years old, and 3 of them are 38 years old, which is, I believe, the life of the building, or when it was originally built. Not certain on that. And then some of the furniture in there, I believe, is original from when it was the library, some of the wooden chairs and things like that, but there are other chairs and other items that I believe are owned by the church. So we would need to replenish furnishings. If we want to have community events where they're renting out the space, they're going to need tables and chairs, that type of thing. So those are things to consider. Also, security. Currently, there are no cameras. Potentially, you'd probably want cameras on the outside of the doors and potentially in the large meeting room spaces, depending on what kind of events or uses are in there. You want to protect yourself that way. We would need to change out the 3 main exterior door locks and just rekey them. But I think it would be nice to have at least one of the doors have a key fob system like the senior center now has, where if someone is using it, say we have an instructor running a program, we don't need to be there if they're there and they can get in and out easily. So that'd be, and Simon mentioned the main entrance off the parking lot does have electricity to it. It's an automatic door, so it wouldn't be that significant to add that there. Next up, housekeeping. Simon gave me an estimate of about $1,000 a month. That would be for people, they currently come into the Public Works building 3 days a week and clean and vacuum and do that kind of thing. And he thought that would be a good estimate on the cost. I don't know if we need 3 days a week or we just need 2. Certainly, I don't mind doing minor cleanup as necessary if we were up there. And then supplies, paper towel, toilet paper, that type of items. Staffing. If the rec department, myself and Mari moved up there, additional staffing would be driven by programming, but not as big of a need like I talked about during the daytime. We would need Mari's out often in the summer supervising our playground program, and this year we had a part-time office help at Public Works due to all the walk-in customers. And so we would probably need that at our office if I'm not in there all the time. So that would be something that needed to be addressed. Scheduling the building. So basically having a system. We have a system to schedule all our park shelters, all our other programs. It'd be quite simple just to add the spaces of this facility into our system to basically make them rentable to the public or used by other departments. We could take care of that. And then we talked about revenues, kind of where they would go, and then setting up maybe a fee structure for building rentals, and if we are doing joint or cross programming with, say, adult fitness, that kind of thing, trying to get that figured out. And then moving on to if it happens, a soft opening, what updates need to be completed before the building can be used, and which could be done later. Could potentially have a soft opening where a few services are initially provided as renovations occur and staff become more acquainted with the space. More programming could come after that. And then kind of a potential timeline, depending on what you guys want to do. Basically, the renewal notice by March 30th is something you guys need to decide. And then I would say, right, in second quarter 2025, get estimates for the improvements that we need to make to maybe transfer this over to this kind of usage. And then October and beyond, probably construction, renovation. Obviously, I don't know if anybody's been in the old library here, but I hadn't been in a while. We took a tour. Well, with the church, they've made like a sanctuary where they have all their seating. It's a large space. Do we need to keep it a large space? Next to it is another large, not as big, but a nice-sized room. Again, thinking of opportunities for room rental or after-school programming or any of that stuff. So that's something to think about here. And then the goal here is to start enhancing programs and start off with programming in December or right away January 2026. So that is the end of the presentation. Is there any questions you might have for any of us?
Well, before we get to that, I just want to say, thank you for the presentation. Overall, what we're trying to do is decide how we move forward, which, it could include keeping, renting to the church or working out some other agreement. It could be, kind of proceeding with, the community center plan. We're kind of getting close, as you can see by the March 30th deadline, to decide what to do. And before we have staff spend more time on something, if people are just like dead set against the community center, I mean, I don't want to waste anyone's time because there's like a ton of other work that staff could be doing. On the other hand, if we do want to proceed with a community center, obviously we have to give proper notice and figure out how it's all going to work, and then we need to talk about it for the 2026 budget. So that's kind of what we're here now, is to figure out what happens next. So I guess I'll open it up to general discussion, or if people have questions for the presenters. Alder Lytle and Alder Helmke.
Just a couple to help me understand the overall framework. We were distributed a little more detailed breakdown of potential expenditures.
Yeah, it's in the.
I was curious, the other spaces we utilize, either with the school district or non-city providers, is the city paying rent or usage fees for any of those that would potentially go away if we were using our own facilities?
Right, so currently we do not pay to utilize the schools. We obviously don't pay the senior center as well. So to answer your question, no, we don't pay any fees. So the school does use our facilities for free as well. It's a nice working relationship that way. So yes.
Great. And then this might be unfair to ask Mr. Alec, but I recall that in the past, a portion of the old library rent was designated to pay interest on our current loans for the new library. Do you roughly remember if we're reaching a sunset for that, so that would not be an ongoing expense?
Principal and interest, yes. And actually, we're very close to paying it off. Mr. Lamers, before I came to the meeting tonight, basically gave me a quick little pro forma on where the former library is at. We started the year with $63,000. A $30,000 payment was made for the new library debt. So we have $33,000 from there. We also have one of those new furnaces was installed, so that was $7,150. So today, we have $25,850 in the balance for that building. That's not also taking into account future rent payments, over the course of the year. Of course, there's utilities associated with that. That's about a little over $1,000 a month, but anyway, that's kind of where things stand fiscally.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Oh, and to add on, it's almost paid off. I don't know, Stacy, do you know what, I think it's a lesser amount, though. I will send that out as information, what is left for the library debt.
Alder Humke.
Yeah, I'm curious about, do we have even ballpark estimate of what the upgrades are? I know you list all the things, like, does Simon know, or do you have some sense of cost?
Currently, we don't have anything for the
Okay.
renovation.
Okay,
Obviously, there are certain construction costs that might be a little more significant, but I don't foresee being huge costs.
do we, like, how would that work? Would it go into the 2026 budget because of timing being the end? Well, if we're going to go live like in December, we'd have to have some incurred costs. I'm just trying to figure out like how that would all.
Without having seen what the expenses would be, I would guess we couldn't really do much to the building until we had budgeted for 2026, unless someone came back for a budget amendment to the council, which requires a 2/3 majority.
Okay. My other follow-up question is, the revenue estimate, is that kind of like year one estimate and thinking then like expanding and maybe growing? That's sort of
Yes.
like your baseline of what you're thinking?
Yeah, these are all programs that we would like to try to implement pretty much right away in 2026, and the associated revenues with those. That's all said. I can't control whether or not people sign up for a program. So I was kind of conservative in some of these estimates, but at the same time, to give you an example, like we do a couple art classes with Sarah Lenz. It's a great program, but to give you an idea how that works, she charges a certain amount for it. We add $10 to the fee. So if we get 30 participants for a program, we make $300. That revenue, multiplied times, say, we have the class 8 times a year, that's how we arrive at those numbers. And a lot of these revenue in these programs are kind of like that, not high-end revenue programs, with the exception of the after-school program.
Sure.
I did some research with that, and like I said, the YMCA is full, and they charge $425 per month for their after-school care. I put a number of $300 a month, which is a lot less, which I think would bring in, obviously, the number there, if we filled it at 15 kids.
And how would you fill, like, who would be staffing that? I know, is staffing an issue, like, during the school year in that time? I'm just trying to think of, like, all the.
Right,
questions
so
to ask.
generally that's after school, right? So elementaries get out at 2:25, so kids would walk there from, say, Sugar Creek. And myself and Mari would be there, so Mari's the rec assistant. So we would probably plan early on to have her be the lead there. Typically, you want to have 18 or less per staff is kind of the guidelines on that. And so then we would probably try to hire some of our high school playground program employees that we have during the summer that could come when they get out of high school. High school gets out at 3:45, so then they would potentially work that shorter span of, say, 4 to 6 p.m.
Also noted that high schoolers sometimes have, like, don't take their last class of the day potentially, and if they were interested in.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. I'm going to comment as well, if that's okay. So I understand that the church has been using this space, and they're a part of our community, and this is a hard transition if we do move in this direction. I'm grateful that they are a part of the community, that they're serving the police force. I do have to think about, though, the taxpayers here, and, I have gotten numerous emails about, just in general over time, about wanting to have more opportunities for recreation. I myself have kids and have felt that same way, that there has to be other ways that we can support our community in all age ranges. And having also served on the Senior Services Committee, seeing how robust the programming is there and how there is so much need. And I'm glad that we have the opportunity to service the library potentially too here, and alleviating some space. So I think for me, this feels like a great opportunity to move forward as we have this growing community, and providing many ways to serve our community by using the space that we already have in existence. Commodity, space is a really hard commodity to find. We own it. We're really fortunate that we do. It's in a great location. Like Casey mentioned, it's walking distance to multiple schools. Actually, yes, multiple schools. And I like the idea. I hear parents also talking about having the after-school problem, right? It's really challenging. And so I think there's a lot of ways in which our community can be served by this space. I'm really excited about it. And I'm really grateful that you all put this presentation together to speak about the ways in which we can help people.
Other comments from the council? Alder Kaiser McHenry.
I'll just echo, I'm not going to say everything she said, but I agree with everything she did say. I'm sure there's not an appetite for a referendum to build a community center, a bigger senior center, and a bigger library right now. And I know for a fact that this community is growing and we're lacking some of the programming that we need in all three of those agencies. Every community around us is struggling with where to build, how to build, where to get the money to build, how to expand programs, and where the money's going to come from. And if we have, and I agree, the church is very, very important, but at the same time, if we have a facility that we own and we're making staff double up in offices and store equipment where it shouldn't be stored, there's some things that we could maybe look at to make this a little bit easier for some of our programming.
Alder Tucker Long.
I had a quick question for Casey or someone. So a couple of the things that you had mentioned in your list of things to, like renovations list, like the elevator and the outside door and things like that. Am I correct in understanding that those are things we'd have to do anyways to the building because we own the building?
Yes.
Okay, so those are not new costs necessarily. I mean, they're things we should take into consideration, but they're not costs we avoid if we don't.
Yes, I would say the door, for sure. It's rusty, getting old. According to Simon, needs to be replaced regardless of whether we use it or not.
Okay.
The elevator is needed if there's going to be programming in the basement. I know Stephanie talked about employee wellness. Another idea that actually Simon brought up as I was talking to him was potentially having a fitness space for employees in the basement. You could put, treadmills, weight machine, that kind of stuff that folks could utilize. And maybe eventually if it becomes robust enough, maybe that's something that the public could utilize as well. But there again, if we program it like that, again, we would need to make sure the elevator is up to snuff, so to speak. I know it passed inspection, Simon said, but he doesn't like to use it. So ideally, I don't know that we want seniors or children in the elevator, that kind of thing, so.
So taking a look at the kinds of renovations that would need to happen before we could start utilizing the space versus if we don't utilize the space, I feel like it's not much bigger than what we'd need to pay anyways to be responsible landlords for this space. Because if the elevator is not safe for us to use, I don't want us expecting our tenants to use it like that. I really don't want to be a bad landlord. And so for me, the renovation costs are not a hindrance. I echo everyone's statements in that I wish this situation were, I guess, a cleaner decision. I definitely am not a fan of, asking anyone to find a new space or trying to, make things rough for any members of our community. But, like Brent mentioned, we need space and we need to be utilizing the spaces we own to their maximum capacity. And I just think right now, yes, it's helping a group of people in our community, but we could really be helping so much more of the community with the building. And so I'm definitely in favor of this community center idea.
Alder Posey.
Thank you. For me, I think this is why we hold on to buildings. You know, I don't know what the original plan was when they decided to hold on to it and not sell it or demolish it or do whatever the options were on the table at the time. But having been part of making some of these financial decisions of, I think, porch repairs and a new roof and maybe something else over the couple of years, this is why we've done it. So I think the need is there. I think having it continue to serve the community, it served the community as a library space, has served the community as a church, and now it could serve the community as a overall general community recreational space. As far as timing, my concern is the budget, of course, and making sure that we do the renovations that are necessary before we start using it, everything that we've just been talking about. So I guess that's my concern with timing is I want to do both, say, give the church the time they need and do the right renovations and plan for it appropriately. So we're not trying to do it halfway. Like, let's do it right and let's actually make the plan and make the budget around that. So I don't know how that falls for timing, but I think it is valued time for staff to spend on coming up with the right plan and the actual numbers, not just estimates. Other note is on the rental plan, having worked with the senior center on the rentals over there and currently taking a pause on that because of some of the things that have come up. I know you guys work closely together and the lessons that have been learned there, and hopefully the future of what's going to go forward there can align, because I do think any of our spaces that we're renting as a city should align. It shouldn't be like, well, a room over here costs this, and a room over there costs that on a Saturday and a Sunday, and so hopefully we can get that figured out, and the security side of it, because I think that also needs to be in order before any of that comes online. So, again, that's it.
Other thoughts on the council? Alder Lytle.
I think in general, I'm a little less positive about this plan than my fellow alders. Not to say that all the needs folks are discussing aren't real needs and would provide a lot of benefit for our citizens, but several people have said we are a growing community. And I know it's not just these three facilities that have growing needs. And between some of the discussions that have taken place about a new public works facility and was the previous design requirements, were they more robust than they needed to be? I would love to see us not lock ourselves into spending a lot of money on renovating this building until we have a little more holistic facilities plan, projecting growth, projecting staffing needs and office space, and, what city buildings and property we own that could be expanded, what a move of the Public Works Department would mean overall for building utilization and that kind of thing. I'm not saying this would be the right choice, but we could look at some sort of RFI for the old public library to see whether we could become one user of a multi-use building by starting and designing stating exactly what our needs are, and potentially having businesses on the first floor. Those kind of options, I think, are all available to us if we do take a little bit of a pause, kind of get our financial house in order in terms of how we would budget for this. And again, I think all three groups, all three representatives here are presenting some great opportunities for us, but until we're thinking citywide, I feel like we want to move slow and cautiously versus, putting all our eggs in this old public library basket.
Other thoughts from the council? I guess if people feel like they've kind of said what they wanted to say. Does anyone feel comfortable making a motion to provide direction to staff? Alder Tucker Long.
Let me know if this wording doesn't work, but I move that we give notice that we are terminating the lease and direct staff to talk to the applicant to discuss if September 30th date is going to be achievable for them, or if there is an alternate date they would like to discuss.
I guess notification of termination and then enter negotiations with the tenant? Is that
Yeah,
what you're
my thought is,
Okay.
if September 30th is not a reasonable date for them, I want to have that open for discussion, and staff could talk to them and come back to us with a discussion on the date.
Yeah, I don't know if that necessarily needs to be as part of the motion.
Okay.
Because I think you're just saying negotiations. I think we, obviously, they've been very good tenants and they're part of the community, so we want to make sure that we're repaying that in kind as much as we can and being good landlords. I do think, and this is more commentary, but that we're not going to be able to do much until 2026, until the budget. And, it's not like there's going to be a contractor in there on January 1st, like fixing the building if that's the way we go. So I think there could be months flexibility, but I don't know. Do you want to try to restate it, I guess? Sorry.
I will restate my motion. I move that we notify the tenants that we are not renewing their lease.
And direct staff to begin negotiations on the
Yes,
last
and direct
date.
staff to begin negotiations.
Okay. Motion by Alder Tucker Long. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Humke. Motion before the body. Questions or comments on the motion? Alder Posey.
So are we saying that we're going to notify the termination and we're allowing staff to have a discussion so that we can make decisions based upon our timeline? Because I'd hate to say, be out of there October 30th or October 1st, whichever was off the top of my head, and then have us not get in there until next April. So how does that piece, because I feel like there's still a lot that needs answering, and to say we're directing them right now when we still have time before this
If
is
I'm
necessary.
understanding, I think the negotiations would give staff the chance to work with the tenant, and obviously, if the tenant got a better offer somewhere else, I mean, I don't think anyone would blame them if they said, hey, we're out of here, or alternatively, if we didn't need the building till April, we could potentially extend it till April. I think we would kind of have to find out what they're thinking before we proceeded. But I guess, and then anything would have to come back to us, obviously, for negotiations and see if the council agreed to it. Does that make sense, or did you have a?
Kind of. I guess it's because it is so vague still that we're making a motion, which is usually something where we say we have specifics, and rather than just directing staff to have a conversation, we're making a motion and voting. And I think that's where I'm used to that being more of like a firm versus we're directing staff to go and have a discussion and say, hey, this is the way we're leaning, and what would you guys be thinking, and just giving you a heads up that this is coming. Does that make sense?
No, that does make sense. I think it is my interpretation of the situation, it's best to have a motion and a vote, just so we can all get on record. If it's going to pass, it's going to pass. If it's not going to pass, then it's not going to pass, and we kind of know how to proceed. Because we've occasionally had discussions where people give feedback, but it's not 100% clear how they would vote if it came down to like a yes or no. And I think we owe it to city staff and the tenant to give them a like, hey, we want to proceed with this, or no, we don't.
Yeah.
Alder Tucker Long, and then Alder Hoax.
The reason I made this motion, though, for today is because I feel like it's only fair if we give as much notice as possible, and we don't have a solid plan yet of exactly when we're going to be in the building or exactly what we're going to do to the building. But if we know that we want to do something with the building, then I think it's only fair that we give as much notice as possible. Because I don't want to spend a lot of time hammering out lots of details and then end up not giving as much notice as we could have.
Alder Host.
Right, but I think I'm not super comfortable voting on just saying today, like, yep, we're going to end the lease, and I mean, we have numbers, but they're, as Casey said, I mean, they're kind of just vague, right? We don't really have any idea. So I think it would be good to give as much notice as we can, but, I mean, I just feel like, I don't know why we always try to rush into, let's just vote, and then we'll figure out the details, right? Like, that's the opposite of what we should do. So, like, if that's our motion, then I'm gonna vote no, because I don't have answers to enough to vote, and I understand certain people just want this building, but I don't know enough to vote to, like, safely say, like, let's kick them out, and then we have no idea what we're doing with this building yet, so, thank you.
Alder Humke.
How long would it take to get quotes? Like, is that something that Simon would be working on to get quotes for? Like, could we move that forward? Is that part of what we are, like, giving the authority to do in this conversation?
I mean, I think that would be the next steps that staff would take. But Mr. Dudley, how long would it, if you can crystal ball
Yeah,
it?
I would say you could get within a couple months, at least probably a month, if we put out, basically reach out to contractors to see about renovations to get some quotes.
So by the last meeting of March? I mean, so what is, if we aren't able to get the quotes in time for alders to be comfortable, which I completely understand, knowing what the cost is, what would that look like then in terms of if the agreement, we have to give notice, but we could, when it was for renegotiating, we could negotiate it to be a shorter term, right? Like, let's say.
Right, and I would expect once staff goes to the tenant, they'll come back to the council with, like, this is kind of what the tenant needs, and this is what we think makes sense. And then we could vote on it then.
Yeah, no, I still do agree, though, that, like, we should know what the cost is. So, like, I mean, worst case scenario is if we can't get a cost by the 31st of March, we're still probably fine, given the scenario that we've all been talking about, that, like, if we couldn't get the building until April of 2026, like, that would still be amenable to everybody.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, I think April seems like me. Sometimes these things with the way the city moves can take a long time, so, like, April might be fast.
So I guess I'm in favor of also waiting and finding out how much it's going to cost us.
Alder Tucker Long.
Casey, if we don't have a budget to do anything to the building, other than replacing the door, which we have to do anyways, and potentially fixing the elevator, which we're probably going to have to do anyways, could the building be used as is for a while until we get the budget in 2026?
I would say yes, certain parts of it, absolutely. There'd be some minor costs where we'd have to buy some tables and chairs, but nothing significant or structurally. And the current carpet is old, so if it gets spilled on, it's certainly not something that's a huge concern, so absolutely.
Alder Lytle.
I guess I understand why Alder Helmke is saying, let's get our quotes, but I'm not comfortable providing a scope of work for what we want to quote for. I guess in general, I would say we should invest minimally beyond, the things we would need to do to keep this building viable for whatever use until we have a plan and evaluate some layouts and present some alternatives for, okay, if we spent this much, we could have some rec programs. If we spent this much, we could have storage in the basement. If we spent this much, we could actually use the basement and, so there's some pros and cons for these alternatives. And I don't think it makes sense for us to rush into spending the money without knowing what those alternatives are and comparing the costs. So I would encourage us to, focus on being good landlords. I think probably provided signals to the current tenant that this is on their radar and they're evaluating other options. But, whether it's, the discussion goes, we're, thinking of a month-to-month for a certain period after that, and either party, they're ready to move into their new facility, could terminate. So everything is out in the open, and there's as much notice. I think I'm comfortable supporting the motion that's on the floor.
Other thoughts from the council? Other, Helmke?
Can I ask him just I think I'm trying to understand what we're trying to do, because if, I'm not opposed to what Alder Lytle is saying, I just want the staff to be able to do it, and I feel like what I'm being told is that if we don't vote on this, the staff aren't going to be allowed to talk about this or spend their time on it. And so I think I'm just confused as to what we're trying to accomplish, because I want them to be able to talk about it, however which way, so we can all come to an agreement to have the best information possible to make a decision.
I technically, I don't think staff would need this particular motion to proceed with it. However, I do think it's out of fairness to the tenant that if we do plan on notifying them that we're going to terminate their lease at the end of the year or upon some negotiated period, we should tell them as soon as possible, is my opinion. If people plan on doing it anyway. If you don't want the community center, or you're kind of not sure this is the path you want to go, then I would say voting no makes sense. But if you think you're pretty much in favor of terminating the lease no matter what, I mean, I personally think it's more fair to tell them today, if that's how you feel. Other thoughts from the council? Seeing no other discussion, all those in favor of notifying the tenant that the lease will be terminated and directing staff to negotiate the last day for the tenant, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no?
No.
And that motion passes 6-1 with Alder Hoax voting no. Anything further on this topic? Seeing no further discussion, we will move on to item C, which is a discussion and possible action regarding the First Amendment to Whispering Cove's Phase 1 Development Agreement. We have been notified by the applicant that they are withdrawing this topic for the meeting tonight. So unless someone wants to make an editorial comment, we can move on to item 12, which is adjournment. A motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
Motion by Alder Hoax, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alder Helmke. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. And we adjourned at 8:14 p.m. Thank you, everyone.